Hi there, welcome back. So I know many of us heard the news today and we are rightfully disappointed. We're not quite understanding why we needed to go down this path. Hadn't we gone far enough already? We just want the nightmare to end, and I am totally there with you. But I wanted to share a couple messages. And today is MLK Day, and I was hoping to connect with MLK, but instead Sojourner Truth popped in. Because sometimes that's how mediumship works, right? You want to connect with a certain person, but instead someone else with a more poignant message for the moment pops in, and you just kind of got to go with it. So Sojourner Truth, 1880, I think is when she maybe died, something like that. I don't quite know a lot of the history off of the top of my head. I'd have to go look it up, but I know she was instrumental in the resistance in terms of racism. She married, I believe it was a slave. She bore 5 children, although there was a rumor that she had 13. One of those children died. And when she popped in, she kind of came in really quick, like, and holding a lantern. And that is one of the things or the images that have been popping up for me quite a lot recently. Everyone's got a light, is the light, is holding a light. And so there's a message in that as well. But she came in with a very loose, like, robe coat on. Her head is hooded, underneath this floppy kind of hood. And she came in holding that lantern. And immediately what she showed me is her straddling 2 sides. So it was the ground. On one side of the ground was white. On the other side was black, and down the middle was a line, like a demarcation line, and her foot was on one side of that line and the other foot was on the other, like she's straddling the light and the dark, which is exactly what we are doing as well. So the messages that she gave, one was, and I'm just going to read it off my notepad here, we need the dark to know where to shine the light, and straddling the light, and as we straddle the light and dark, remember that we are the keeper of our nation's secrets, and it's time to stop keeping the secrets. And then she also showed me her hands kind of picking up some of the light and some of the dark. It was almost like sand, and her hands were sifting it, and that made me think of alchemy, right? Like something being transmuted, something being alchemized. And that's what we are in the process of doing. Let's see. I also heard that he was not supposed to be sworn in, but it's like a ball in a net, right? And so that ball hits the net and it stretches it back, and we are in that stretching back moment. And then I heard, because it's the truth, he did not win and he should not be there. Let's see. And then the next message was, throughout this week, we could expect some confusion and chaos as the net begins to recede. And I asked the question of, well, who's going to save us? Like, what are we supposed to do here? And I heard that we are saving ourselves, by uncovering our eyes and seeing the truth. And that we could mirror today with November 5th, right? It was presented to me as bookends, like November 5th, and then today. And also November 5th ties into when a lot of us intuitives and others just had that sense of knowing that something wasn't wrong, that things were rigged, that things were stolen. And even the orange blob was on camera at his rally, openly admitting it. I think he admitted it like 3 times. I watched 2 of the clips, but I can't stand to hear his voice. And so I didn't seek out that 3rd clip. But I encourage you, if you haven't seen them, go and watch them. It is so clear and blatant. And he's also thanking Starboy, as Jennifer Lisa Vest calls him. And it's just clear as day. And so even that becomes confusing. We hear him say what he said, and nobody's going to do anything, and all proceedings go nice and smooth. There's no questioning, there's no nothing that happens. And that feels really off to me. Like we're not, like, I mean, my heart is usually where the tension kind of catches, and I can feel it contract and hold it there until I do some deep breaths and kind of release it. But all today, my heart has been pretty clear, as well as my body. But it's just like we're in a bad, shitty episode of the Twilight Zone, you know, watching all of this stuff kind of go by. And I know that there's a saying, observe, but don't absorb. And so definitely keep that in the back of your mind, because there's a lot that we could just look at and lose complete and total hope, right, for any semblance of decency and calm for our future. And that is not something, like, we don't have the luxury of doing that. You know, it's just not on the menu, and it's not going to serve us in the long run. So, okay, back to Sojourner's messages. Let's see. So we are saving ourselves by uncovering our eyes and seeing the truth. Mirror today as those bookends. And a little more about the bookends. He's been in our faces for years now. She didn't even signal like the start of his story way back when, and the his recent presidency or what happened in 2020. No, it was like caps, you know, on November 5th and today. And it was very clear that this is the end of that story, not the chapter, but the story altogether. And we are to write the next story. So think about them like in a series of books, you know, by an author, where pieces of a story continue to play out in all of those books. But each book is a complete book on its own. And that's kind of how it was presented to me. And then I said, okay, well, that is a nice idea. We get to write this next book. It's lofty. It's, you know, good feeling. But in terms of praxis, right? Like in terms of putting that into play and actually doing it, there are laws that govern us. There are rules and policies that we've got to follow and abide by. And so what do we do with that? And I heard that that's an idea rooted in fear, and there is no place for fear in the light. Push back on the policies, push back on the laws. They don't succeed if we don't comply. So that was a really good message. I feel like I loved when I heard that, because it's absolutely true. They don't succeed. Those policies, those laws, those dictator wannabes, they don't succeed if we don't comply. But then that led me to my next question, because I was like, well, a lot of us, you know, like we just don't have the fight in us, because we haven't had to have that level of fight in us that you had and that many people had, getting us to this point in time in history. And so what do we do about that? And that kind of took me to the message of unity, which I'll come back to in a moment. But what she ultimately was saying is that we won't have to get there in terms of, you know, a CW, or in terms of really fighting the way that people have done in history, because there are other ways that we can organize that they'll never see coming. So I guess that is where we start to do the work and figure out what that looks like. Yes, there are ideas floating around about boycotting Amazon and making sure that we use our dollars in more responsible, thoughtful ways to ensure that we're not giving more power to people that do not have our best interests in mind. And so that's one of the ways. Other ways, I don't know. I don't know yet. I'll have to meditate on that. I'll have to see what comes up. I know that we are just not unified people the way that they were in the past. And so that complicates the situation when we've been ingrained to be individuals and to think and to do for only ourselves and our families, and not really look at, our neighbors and say, hey, do you need help with something? Sometimes, yes, we do. There are some of us who do, but as a majority, we don't. We don't. And that is a serious problem of ours. It's felt like a problem for a very long time. And clearly, we don't really have an option not to look at that, re-examine it, and put things in place that work better for us collectively, and to, organize ourselves around what we can do to unify and to be that resistance in these new ways that we can be, and for us to continue trending in the direction that we know we're supposed to be heading right now, even if the officials and everything in the government is saying otherwise. The divine feminine is here. That is not going anywhere. It's within us, it's around us, and we are rolling with it in a more, supportive, conducive to our needs and wants future, including policies and law, eventually, that we need. So there's that. And it took me to, which takes me to the next message of hers. The light is already here. The action is already done. That light will wash over us and illuminate everything. We just have to allow ourselves to see. Then we are able to unite. We are able to write the new story. It's an entirely separate book. Okay, so it kind of summarizes things there. But I'll read that again because I feel like it's really important. The light is already here. The action is already done. That light will wash over us and illuminate everything. We just have to allow ourselves to see. Then we are able to write the new story. It's an entirely separate book. Okay, so in terms of that first part, the light washing over us and illuminating everything, I'm sure there's many things that we don't know as intuitives. There are. And that whether or not you're an intuitive and you've been following things and you feel like something is off, that, there's just things that we don't know. There are clearly secrets being held from us, from our government. There are clearly pieces of the puzzle that we do not see, which is one of the reasons that a lot of intuitives couldn't even see clearly or completely this day. I never once saw him at the inauguration. Never once. I tuned in. I saw emptiness every single time, right? And so, yeah, I could say, okay, maybe that was a metaphor for an empty administration. It's possible. And it's also possible that more things are coming. And so I'm going to hold out some hope on that. But in terms of things being illuminated, I feel like that's a message mostly for those who are not paying attention, for his followers, for the diehard, supporters, for his band of thieves, for whoever is in Congress or Senate who's thinking that they can be buddy, chummy, and do, whatever the orange blob wants. And I don't think that they will be having that easy of a time while they're in office for whatever length of time that may be. Because even today, he already received 2 lawsuits, like minutes after he was inaugurated. One for creating that, bunk-ass committee or office, the DODGE, and then another for something about under the 14th Amendment that you have to protect people who were born here of immigrants or illegal immigrants, something like that. And I will link the Midas Touch network link to the guy who was talking about that in the comments, so you can check that out. So I don't think that they're going to be having an easy time. That gives me a little comfort. Yes, tie them up every way possible, please, so that they don't even have the time to execute their plans on any scale, let alone mass scale, because they're so caught up with the legal process of it. And so, that's a really good thing, I feel. But in terms of, let's see, there were a couple more messages from Sojourner Truth. We're all connected. Oh, okay. So when she came through, after she was sifting the sand there and helping me think of alchemy, she then was holding a child. And I feel like it was her firstborn that didn't survive. And I asked, okay, why are you holding a child? And her message around that was, we're all connected to our kin on the other side. Like, once you go to the other side, life is infinite. We continue to live, but what we do, can't read my own writing, but what we do on the earth, oh, right, what we do on the earth, but actually she said what we do on that plane, but she was talking about the earth. It matters. The living, the breathing, the fighting for better. We become beacons of hope for others when they can't hope for themselves. It's like we pour it from our chalice into their cup, so from one cup to another, so that they can have a little for themselves. And that's what's needed in this time. So the message is, and I hope you got that, because I know it was kind of choppy reading it, but in summary, the message still keeps coming back to be the light, hold the light, shine the light, so that others can see it and can begin to shine their light brighter as well. That's what we need. I'm calling like all the intuitives, all the spiritualists, all the hoodoos, all the witches, whoever. Like, we've really got to get this thing here into the collective space. We've really got to get that light into the collective space to help others, like, see what's going on, really, those who are struggling with it. Now, I'm not telling you to go and call up your MAGA friend and be like, yo, this is happening. That probably wouldn't really work. But if you shine it bright enough, they just might be attracted to understand, hey, how are you over here shining so bright? We just got to show up and shine, right? Okay, so let's see. And then from there, that was her last message. But then my counsel popped in and wanted to talk a bit more about unity, but specifically community. So I've already kind of said, like, we don't have the instinct that Sojourner had back in the day to fight against things and to be unified in that way. And that's really one of our things that we need to work on together. And then I heard, from my counsel, specifically community, because it's one thing with this very individual American way that we have of thinking about things. I just got to do what I have to do for me. That's always true. That's always true. But when it comes to something like community, it's not just about the I, it's about we, right? And so it's okay to think and ask yourself, like, okay, what does community mean to me? But then we've got to expand that definition to include, what does community need to look like in order to better support and sustain the people within it. And that's a newer layer, I think, for us collectively. It's a lot of work, first of all, and sometimes it doesn't come natural to people to really put others before themselves, or to really think about what is the best for a group of people. I used to think that was a very unique skill among parents, because they understand what it is to juggle multiple children with different needs and different wants, and to try to make them happy and keep your household in some kind of order. But I've seen recently that that's not even, I mean, sometimes it's a rarity even among parents to look beyond the scope of them, putting them first, you know, and their children thereafter. And so I feel like, and I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone, but I feel like that is definitely something that we got to work on. There was some story going around social media, and I don't know if it's made up, but you know, it was making a pretty good example of what I'm trying to express here. One worker showed up at work. The company wanted to fire him, was treating him all kinds of bad ways, holding his last paycheck, had kept some of his tools because it was a construction company, and threw him out and really didn't give him room to, you know, ask why or to contest it or to even get his last pay, right? And the other workers in the company learned about this, and the next day, all of them didn't show up. So they got together, they unified, and they said, you know what, F that. Because if they did that to him, they can easily do that to us as well, especially if we don't speak up and let them know how wrong this is. And so they unified, they all had that strike for a day. They took some of the company's tools and they waited them out until the company resolved the issue in a more, I got the word dignified, in a more just, you know, decent way, right? Like, we're asking sometimes for the base level of just some human common decency. And oftentimes I feel like, you know, the powers that be, just think that that's too much to give us. And it's insane already. But unifying ourselves and coming together, you know, there's strength in that. And my counsel went on to say that, and I'm just going to read it, working with each other is where we'll find our comfort and strength. And so in these times where we're feeling really out of sorts, like what the heck happened, we just want the nightmare to end, go seek the comfort of community. And then they also said, look to ancient civilizations, for they knew what worked and what worked together. We read about them and think it's outdated, but really they were ahead of us in that way. And then it's talking about tapping into those frequencies that exist throughout those civilizations and throughout our lineage. So kind of like calling on the ancestors here, and utilize them to expedite our growth together. And then they also said many of us have access to them already through meditations, through the upgrades that they've been giving us. But this is where, or this is when, this time is when we gather the light, come together, and learn to focus it and handle that uniquely shared power. So again, just back to that message of there is power in numbers. And so that leads me to the last thing that I want to talk about. So initially I was told by my guides, you are going to help people after this ordeal, after, you know, however that after played out, and whatever that help looks like, right? Clearly, we are not in the after just yet. Unfortunately, we are not there just yet, but I'm also not going anywhere. I'm going to continue making videos, continue showing up and learning how I am supposed to help. And just, you know, do my best to continue shining the light so that hopefully it inspires you a little more. You connect in with your own light and you are able to shine it for someone else. And I encourage you to go, if you aren't already connected to all of the other Dreaming Women as Lisa or as Jennifer Lisa Vest calls us, go connect in with them too. They're around YouTube, they're on TikTok, and I'll pop some of those names on the screen. But there's Meister Tarot, there's Jennifer Lisa Vest, there's Sky Girl that comes to my name, or comes to mind right now. There's Rosie Insights. They don't really know who I am, and hopefully that'll change somewhere in the future, but that's besides the point. Go watch their videos, go read their comments, go see all the positivity happening over there. Whether or not we were totally and completely 100% accurate with all of whatever precog work we've done, this is bigger than that, and dates are very human deadlines, often arbitrary deadlines. The energy is going to work itself the way it works itself. And so it's hard though sometimes to kind of let go of those things, but they've got tons of insights, tons of meditations, tons of followers and people commenting that are sharing their dreams, that are also holding the light, that are doing their best to show up and stay positive here. And that's the thing that we've got to continue to do. And I know that I said that was the last thing that I was going to mention, but I got one more, and I don't want to forget it. My guides, or the council, as they were talking, they also mentioned that there were two paths today. And we chose one of those paths, but they both end in the same place. And then they showed me an image. Actually, it was Sojourner Truth that showed me that image when I was talking to her, but it's still, it's fitting. It was kind of like her straddling that lightness and darkness, but instead the demarcation line was like right in the center of my head, and the darkness was on the left side and the light was on the right side, right? Those two paths are there, but they both end up in the same place. And so hold that if you need to. Take comfort in that, knowing that, yes, this is not really what we wanted, but that calmness that I felt this morning, it can't be that bad. It won't be that bad. And it won't last for long. Okay? Quickness, right? That's what Sojourner Truth was also showing me. Because once you shine a light on something, once we shine that light on the dark, it just dissipates. So, okay, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you make sure that you do your deep breathing exercises, you get grounded, you find your center. I'll also link a link to an article, a straightforward article I wrote on 9 different meditations that you can play around with to get you started if you're not really big on meditation. And they are listed from easy to difficult. And if you don't have the focus to read something, I totally get it, to read something right now, just find one on YouTube. I do that often. I did that this morning. I had about 30 minutes of breathing exercise, and it was fantastic. And so I'll leave you there, and I will see you in the next video. And if you found this video helpful in any way, please hit the like and subscribe and set your notifications, and I'll see you soon. One more thing before I go. So I started what I call the Spiritualist Collective, and it's an online spiritual community of like-minded spiritual practitioners and seekers at varying stages of their development. And we get together once a week to connect and to build and to share our gifts and to grow. And recently I opened it up to the larger BIPOC community. Don't love that acronym, but I know you know what I mean. But if any of this sounds good to you, then please check out the link in the description, and I hope to see you there.